NFL podcast. What am I doing with my life?
Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hansis, joined in a room filled with heroes Mark Sessler, Chris Wessling, Greg Rosenthal with the Pocket Square. What is up, boys?
Hey, Dan.
Pocket Square life.
Yep, finish the suit.
I like that you have just like a cardboard paper ringer.
That's another way to go.
It's a valet ticket.
There you go.
You actually have your parking lot ticket in your pocket. I enjoy that. That's a working class man's way to fly.
She knows my name. Her name's Nancy and my name's Dan. It's a nice relationship.
Very nice.
Dancy.
Hey, Ricky Hollywood, it is on fire in the studio right now.
Yeah, you guys are looking great.
Are you looking to smoke us out? Do you want to see what it looks like? My uncle used to call me the human sweat gland. Do you want to see it really?
Do you want the public to know that?
I'm just being open about it.
I mean, the public's about to find out.
Yeah.
In 5
They're
minutes.
learning. It's the one day that I've worn a second layer in like 9 months. It happens to be 104 degrees.
As soon as I fix the refrigerator, I'll get in there up in engineering and turn down the.
Listen, check off your list as slowly as you desire.
Yeah.
Wait, you didn't fix the refrigerator yet?
No, I'm not a mechanic.
We've understood that.
I think we covered this ground. You were supposed to reach out to someone that could fix it.
Yeah, I did. I followed. I even said, following up on this last email.
Sweating.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
You look good though. There's the camera, and
Thanks.
you can watch this on every Thursday. Our preview show is live.
Live.
How fun is that?
On NFL.com.
NFL.com.
Eventually be up on YouTube. I think it's streaming on YouTube as well.
We're live on YouTube
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
The Shadowy League figure just put a thumbs up.
I'm checking on the YouTube link, and it currently 4.2 million viewers. So the show is taking off.
Very good.
Yeah.
I feel like that will be good for our eventual contract negotiations.
You'd think.
Write that number down. All right. Hey, so this is the Week 3 preview episode. As we hinted, we will be, instead of putting the Thursday night recap, the game between the Titans and Jacksonville, at the top of the show and putting the show out later, mini-pod coming up later tonight. And this episode will come up earlier than it ever has, which is a great thing.
I mean, finally giving one of the NFL's great rivalries its due. Its own podcast, Titans-Jaguars.
It is a perfect way to kick it off.
That feels like 33% of the Thursday night games in history.
And
Can we do a little housekeeping though?
yes.
You know, we had Rich Eisen on the other day.
Yeah. So hot.
We couldn't record until about 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. And I got a lot of tweets saying that I'm a bad producer because I don't get the show up in time. And can we all stand together and sometimes our schedules come up into things, that we all agree on together, right?
Sure.
But today, the Thursday show is going to go right up after it's live. So you can count on that. Tuesday, some things come up.
First of all, you're a wonderful producer.
Thank you.
Second of all, ignore the idiots.
Right.
Yeah.
You're kind of sending a loud message to them that they're going to get a response if they keep bugging you.
Yeah, I guess.
So quit it and just block them.
Another thing to note,
Block 'em.
we're about 5 minutes into the show. 3+ have been focused on the Erica cam with just Erica, announcing her announcements. So.
Hey, as I said, Erica, when it comes to fans that get on you, don't let the bastards grind you down.
Thanks.
That's important.
Thanks,
to remember.
Dan.
We support you. All right. Before we get into the first game and the draft, 2 bits of housekeeping. First of all, total disgrace last week. We went 0-4 locking our games. We're supposed to be professionals, and this isn't good enough. And I speak for myself as much as I speak for the whole team. We will be better in Week 3. Guaranteed. At least 1-3.
I mean, I'm okay with how I fared.
You picked the Giants. You need to be better too, Mark. We all need to be better.
I think it would be just as special and just as much of an accomplishment after winning 2 times in a row to go 0-16 or 0-17. That would be.
Is that why you picked the Giants last week? All right, now we're starting to figure it out.
Here we go.
All right, now that's the first bit of housekeeping. Second bit, Wes, you and me, first pick. As a gentleman, I'll defer to my elder. Do you want to have the first overall pick?
Oh, no, you can take it.
All right, so the old Zeuser will pick first, then Wes, then Mark, then Greg, right? Makes sense. All right, so let's get into it. And I will make the first selection. And it's an easy one for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is live.
Good. Very pregnant pause.
Just how easy is it?
Maybe it's not so easy. I will, with the first pick, oh, yeah, Ravens at Chiefs. Lamar against Mahomes. Whoa, that's a layup. And it's an exciting matchup for the obvious reason that Lamar Jackson, well, maybe nobody's going to break through the way Patrick Mahomes last year did and winning the MVP in his first season as starter. Lamar's off to like the type of start that, besides carrying fantasy teams to championships, really makes the Ravens a totally different team and reframes the way we looked at them. We look at them now compared to even 3 weeks ago. So after a couple layups, and we'll say it's layups, at Miami in week 1, week 2, they had the home game. Who do they have in week 2? It was Cardinals. Took care of business there. He flashed again, especially with his legs. Now he goes on the road to Arrowhead, and I cannot wait to see how Lamar Jackson looks in this setting. This is a beautiful game, and I'm pumped with the number 1 overall pick.
I mean, this game's so good, I'm just going to watch it anyways. I don't care that I'm not assigned to it. Ultimately, there's some, Bills, Bengals, you're getting short shrift. I mean, this game should be put on it's a crime this game's at 10 a.m. out here and 1 p.m. across the country. It should be on national TV everywhere because we haven't seen – there literally has never been a matchup like this in Week 3 in NFL history. Just their passing stats, for what it's worth, are the greatest ever in terms of, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the completion percentage, the amount of yards that they have. But it's just the entertainment value that I watch this sport to be dazzled. And Lamar Jackson right now, we knew the 8-yard out where he, fakes the handoff is the easiest play in football in terms of him running to the sideline. But we did not expect him to be dropping dimes into tight coverage on some sideline routes. That is surprising. We didn't expect him to be dropping, beautiful touch passes over the top of zone defenses where it gets it over the linebacker in front of the defensive back. I don't know if he can do it every week, but it shouldn't be that shocking that a guy who was 21 years old as a starter is improving dramatically in his second season, and it's a joy to watch.
I get a kick out of John Harbaugh after a few years of not having a dominant team. Really feeling himself this year.
Oh, yeah.
Schrags at halftime asked him, are you concerned about the Cardinals? They came back. They had that big comeback last week, and he said, that is not on anybody's mind over here. We're only concerned about our own domination.
And they didn't really dominate in the second half. But the fans are kind of like John Harbaugh. They seem so crazy excited and so overwhelmed because they've never seen an exciting offense in Baltimore. It's a totally new phenomenon.
I think that's it. The confidence shift is from late period, health-addled Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. And to me, this is the what-if bowl for a huge chunk of teams around the league because last year it was, here's all the teams that are struggling on offense that could have drafted Patrick Mahomes seasons ago instead of the Chiefs trading up with John Dorsey to get him and making the move and trusting him, and everyone that questioned Patrick Mahomes heading into year 2 when a few people thought this guy's going to blow up and most didn't. And the what-if bowl for everyone that waited on Lamar Jackson thinking he wasn't worth a first-round pick. What if the Jets or Browns had even taken Lamar Jackson? He has transformed Baltimore's offense to such a degree, and they have the perfect parts around him right now. And I love that anyone that thought he's going to break down if he's not using his legs, if he's forced to throw, they last week showed they can use his legs when they need to, but they didn't in week 1. And I know it was the Dolphins, but in general, he's grown as a passer in ways that I think was unpredictable to most, and the team is as dangerous as any team in the AFC.
Well, we want to see him against better competition in terms of the defense. And I think the Chiefs will be better competition. They're not a great defense, but I think Spagnuolo will throw a little more at there. And I don't think they're at the low level right now, as Dan fixes my collar.
And we're live digital
You
television.
don't see that on most shows where someone will reach over and adjust another man's
It's
clothing.
YouTube.
There's no commercial breaks here. We need to on the fly.
I like it. It's ad lib at its finest.
The throw that really got me was that 3rd and long. And we did touch on it on the Sunday show, I believe, but it's worth bringing up again. Lamar Jackson, the guy, again, the storyline. Greg, you did a good job with this over the summer. You were pounding the table that Jackson was a guy that could be a passer, that could thrive, and in fact go supernova in year 2 if things went the right way. The throw he makes to Hollywood Brown on 3rd down to ice that game against the Cardinals is the type of throw I just did not think would be in his arsenal this soon or ever, and it just takes the – what is the old Michael Jordan line? The roof has no ceiling. That's where I am right now.
Ceiling or something.
Yeah, something like that. This is an exciting game because if the Ravens go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs, The AFC is just like, wow, we have another powerhouse on our hands, and as good as the Patriots look, it would feel very wide open to me who could come out of this conference.
I don't think the Ravens' defense is as good this year. We'll see. Matthew Judon kind of looks like that guy, that dude that steps up every year for the Baltimore Ravens and then gets paid elsewhere. But overall, they're a little thinner in the secondary than we expect. I don't think they're going to be as
pass rushes.
I mean, Mahomes is the ceiling, though. He's the greatest quarterback I've seen since we've been covering the league to come into it, and he's playing as well or better than he did a year ago. That's the ceiling.
And
this was the game of the year to me in the regular season, maybe except for Chiefs-Rams last year. It was the MVP moment for Mahomes where he hit the 4th and 9 across his body. It was two great styles. They went to overtime. It was a great first Lamar Jackson showing. So I think it could be a rivalry we see throughout the next decade.
My last point and about the Chiefs, because the Chiefs deserve talk as well, is that Derek Carr, after last week's game where they essentially got shut out the last 3 quarters, he made a point to say, like, the Chiefs, this is a really good defense, and we'll see. And maybe you don't trust what Derek Carr has to say, but Derek Carr had no problems carving up Vic Fangio's team the week before and then ran into a wall against the Chiefs. We've talked about this before. All they need to be is okay on defense, and Mahomes will handle the rest.
Chris Jones also had one of the best games you'll see by any defensive lineman not named Aaron Donald or J.J. Watt. It was incredible.
All right.
The way that Lamar Jackson runs, I don't care what defense you are.
I mean, I know
defenders look completely confused when he takes off.
Anyone think the Ravens go there and win? I know we don't pick each game, but
we pick some games.
Sure, I could see
the Ravens.
I'm picking the Chiefs, but I think it'll be a fun game.
I'll take the Ravens by 1 point.
I just have too much faith in Patrick Mahomes right now. I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right, Wes, the number 2 overall pick is
Denver Broncos at Green Bay Packers.
All right, tell us why.
Well, it's in Green Bay. For me, what I watch on Sundays, I just don't want to be offended by your field or your team. And I love watching games in Lambeau. I feel like Aaron Rodgers just misconnecting on a few throws last week that would have been fantastic. I think that offense is close to a breakthrough right now, and this might be the game, especially against a Broncos pass rush, which we expected to be the best in the league, and right now is dead last in combined sacks and quarterback hits, while the Packers have Zadarius Smith, who is tied for number 1 in quarterback pressures this year. And they have Darnell Savage, who to me is one of the most exciting rookies in the business. I'm not saying he's Earl Thomas, but his closing speed and range is fantastic.
Was it the Packers offense, Wes, though, super annoying to you after those 3 possessions? That they could look that good, get the 21 points, and then just not be able to do anything. And essentially, if you take a step back over the 2 games, about 75% of their possessions now have been garbage.
It was not annoying to me. I love the way Aaron Jones ran, over 100 yards, got more than 20 carries. And like I said, Rodgers just missed on a couple of throws. I think there were a couple penalties in there that brought some big plays back.
They moved the ball a little better than I would have expected, considering it was 11 possessions without a point.
I also thought, I was impressed by the way Rodgers played, but then looking at Mahomes, and just the distance between them now, I would not expect that. That Mahomes is so much better than Rodgers right now.
I watched the Packers from end to end, and the note I took was I have hope in the offense because of what happened early. I'm not so worried about it breaking down later in the game because it is a totally new world for Rodgers. Aaron Jones, you're right. I thought he should be their lead back. And Matt LaFleur's talking about splitting carries with him and Williams. And for me, I just think they've missed 2 things in my book for a long time. It was a featured running back that could bolster Rodgers and you could count on from wire to wire. I think you have that in Jones if he stays healthy and unsuspended. And their defense. I love teams that completely change the way you feel about them early on in the year. And Mike Pettine's defense, they've given up about the second fewest amount of points in the league.
58 passer rating in 2 games.
Right, and it is not a fluke. It is real. And I realize you play the Bears, a rather broken down offense in week 1. But this, to me, the way that Mike Pettin, his defense requires certain play at the cornerback position. They're getting that from their defense and pass rush. They have the right parts in place right now.
Well, they have elite players at every level. So they have a great coach, but the more important thing is the talent. Zadarius Smith and Kenny Clark are both ranked in the top 5 in PFF at their positions. You go, to the back end. Adrian Amos is ranked that high at safety. You have Blake Martinez, we've talked about on this show for a long time. You have playmakers at every level. I mean, making the leap's making a comeback because we had Lamar Jackson and the Packers defense.
Nice. Hey.
We meaning you.
That's right. We're
bad.
going royal we. The only problem with Wes's pick here is he talked about how excited he is to watch the Packers. another team's playing this game, and it's a team that has his heart that he's going to be rooting for. And this is a tough
he's
spot.
locked into the
Oh,
role.
no, I'm rooting for the Packers.
This is a
in
tough
game.
spot for the Broncos.
Well, this is our first cornered animal game of the week. 0-2 teams, your season's over at 0-3, and do not discount that when you're looking to pick teams that they're 0-2, they stink. If they're not really a bad team, I feel like you're going to get a really good effort for a lot of these 0-2 teams. The Broncos, I think, are going to put up a fight here, but like you said, Wes, I don't know how well this team's going to travel all season.
I'm much closer to shutting the Broncos down mentally in my mind before I am thinking they're going to dance with
Mark's
playoff
just got a
hopefuls.
list of all the teams.
Well,
He
I
starts
do.
Crossing them off.
You know what? By the way, I'm typically right on those. Like it's not great for business to talk about a team being done in week 3 or week 4, but you get a feeling, and if you're right 85% of the time, I ride with it. Denver is not a playoff team to me.
Like Steve Buscemi and Billy Madison
exactly.
crossing and then putting on the lipstick.
They still could have intriguing, parts of their team, even if they don't go to the playoffs. But I'm not that excited about the style of this game. These two teams have both played at a very slow pace. Two of the teams that are going to wait till the end of the play clock, and then they're going to call a 2nd and 10 run. Matt LaFleur likes to play that way. Obviously, they're entertaining, but I could imagine it being very close down to the wire, like the last Broncos game, closer than the people in the desert think.
All right, Mark.
This took me about 1 second to pick my game, and
I know what's coming.
the me from August would have been stunned that this would be my pick, because one of the two teams I sort of virtually reject from around age 10 on, but the other one has won me over. And you want to talk about the royal we wrote an article about the Bills this week because we are fired up about Buffalo's chances in the AFC. I love the way this team is made up. They are hosting in their home opener after going on the road and knocking out 2 pretenders from New York. They are hosting Cincinnati, and the Bengals got absolutely worked over as bad as any team I saw in the league last week against the Niners. Just watched that game this morning, got around to it, and I cannot believe how hard the Niners thumped them in Cincinnati. The Bengals went from being an 0-1 team that was very intriguing, I thought, for what they did against Seattle in week 1, to losing all appeal. And I'm not just piling on them. There's just not a lot to cling on to the way that they were run on last week. And it
was a disgrace.
It was a disgrace.
One game. It's one game. That's all you can.
It's one game, and it's a small sample size. So I would say this: if the Bengals ever pulled this out, they're back on board for me as a team that can be frisky. I'm not putting them in no man's land, but the Bills have everything in place. And I think you have Josh Allen playing in a way. You talk about Lamar Jackson. We thought that Lamar Jackson was a run, not throw quarterback at the very worst. And there was much more hope with him than there was, I thought, with Josh Allen in terms of being a complete player. And Josh Allen has answered a lot of questions early. He's had a great running game around him with Frank Gore. And Devin Singletary is my one concern. It sounds like he may not play this week. And he has only had 10 carries, but leads the league in rushes over 10 yards. And it's to me, he made their offense go when they finally put him in the game. This defense should have no problem against Andy Dalton and the Bengals, who to me are one of these teams that can put 2 drives a week against you with big plays that make you think, but then they kill themselves with penalties and turnovers. Their offensive line, the Bengals' offensive line, is a major issue right now.
Andre Smith at left tackle. John Jerry comes in to replace him when he has to sit out. This offensive line is as bad as we thought.
When they've lost, I think, starters at almost every position now. So to be fair to Zach Taylor and what's going on there, if they had a bad offensive line to begin with, and they're down 4 starters right now. They might be down 4 or 5. Like even their backups with like Andre Smith and one of the guards who's now out for the season.
Yeah, that's not Zach Taylor's fault. I mean, they had guys retiring left and right. What's making you chuckle over there, Dan?
I enjoy your passion for the Bills. I want to say that another cornered animal game. And the one thing you have to keep in mind here, I think, is that the Bills as an organization are dealing with something it's a good thing to deal with, but they haven't had in a long time, which is some expectation and some people assuming they're going to win. And everyone's going to go in there and everybody's going to pile into that stadium.
First home game.
And assume, and it's going to be loud and it's going to be a lot of fun. The pregame is going to be out of control in the parking lot. But I would say there's a chance they could get surprised by not walking over a team because if we want to take certain teams in the league and say, oh, they're 2-0, but they beat teams that stink. Well, look at the Jets and the Giants. So I think what we saw from week 1 from Cincinnati was really good. What we saw in week 2 was absolutely wretched. My feeling is they're probably somewhere in between there. And I just don't know if I'm ready to say Buffalo's good enough where they're just going to destroy.
First of all, I think
Sunday.
I think the Bills are built to win games like 25-14. I don't think they're built necessarily to beat teams 40-7. That's not. I don't think it's going to be a blowout necessarily. But I can't point to anything that the Bengals are doing right now that should particularly scare the Bills. And so if the Bills
Not from last week. That
no,
was a
but
burn the tape game.
the Bills have done a better job of playing up to expectations than the Browns, for instance, who came in with high expectations.
Oh, they're beating them.
And some others I could
They're
point
beating
to.
them. They look like one of the best defenses in the league. They have guys like Harrison Phillips who are suddenly stepping up and making big plays. And then Josh Allen. Look, a lot of people have already started walking away from their Daniel Jones, hatred and laughter. No two players in the last two drafts have unified draft Twitter any more than mocking Josh Allen and Daniel Jones. We'll see about Jones, and we'll see about Allen. To me, he's like a relief pitcher that he's going to be wild some weeks, but it's hard to ignore the types of plays he's making on the run now. And if he can just do that. If they could do what they did the first 2 weeks offensively for the rest of the season, they're about 11th in points, 13th in yards per play. They're middle of the pack or a little better. I mean, forget it. They're a playoff team.
Yep.
They're well coached. They're great at fundamentals. They have good leadership. They play well as a team. This is a good all-around team, and they're fun to watch, starting with the quarterback.
And they have Frank Gore.
This is the
They
first
do.
incarnation
They have a lot
of
of
the
work to do
Bills in
today.
a long, long time, and we've seen so many with all these teams that are struggling to break through, where the coach, the front office are all married in unison. They have been especially volatile in that situation previous to this.
All right, now, Greg, the snake pick. So you pick the next two. You're up.
Well,
wow.
the only snake in this room is you for taking the Chiefs and Ravens away.
But you're going to watch it anyway. You're not even a
I
comply
had
to the rules.
the number one overall pick.
Of course, it was the obvious pick. I'm taking Romo again. It wouldn't necessarily have been my strategy, but Tony Romo's covering the Saints and the Seahawks, and I'm going to, first of all, it's 425. You like those games where you can finish with the early,
Smart, bro. Keep that in mind, everybody.
and then you can sit back and you can let a master do his best work in an interesting game. Two NFC teams, which they don't normally have, so I'm interested. It's a little different. And it's Teddy Bridgewater. We've come a long way with the whole Teddy Bridgewater story. We've tracked his entire career on this show. I've always enjoyed watching him. I thought he was better than people thought in Minnesota, that he had a pretty nice upside as like a better version of Alex Smith. He hasn't looked like that in the brief chances he's gotten over the last few years, and who knows how many chances he's going to get with Taysom Hill behind him. This is it. This is a big moment in his career, and I think it's a big moment for Sean Payton too, because I think he wants to go put out that Coach of the Year reel. He wants to have Taysom Hill and Teddy Bridgewater go to Seattle, pull off that road upset, have some crazy plays, and everyone just be honking about how Sean Payton's the man. That's what he's looking for Sunday.
But he's one of the guys I could trust to play. They did the
And he could
NFL
do it.
research.
I don't doubt it.
NFL research put out a study that showed the splatterings during a season or various games where coaches, maybe trying to outsmart everyone else, use 2 or 3 quarterbacks in one game in specific situations, and the results are pretty awful. It just doesn't really work. And that goes back 20, 30 years where it just doesn't sustain itself. I just think we're going to get a lot more Taysom Hill, and if we don't, I'd be stunned.
I think this Saints D also hasn't been impressive. I think that's under the radar. The defensive line's playing great in terms of getting pressure, but as a team defense, the linebackers and the secondary and the run defense is pretty bad. I mean, they did not play well against Los Angeles.
I am switching up my lock here. I was going to take another team, but I can't listen to Greg talk up Teddy Bridgewater that much like he's any threat to Russell.
I mean, I'm not taking the Saints
Russell
to
Wilson.
win.
Come on. I'm locking up the Seahawks in this game.
Fair.
Oh, wow.
Can't wait
I
to
like
lock up against Teddy Bridgewater and Sean Payton in this
New graphic, new
Could
sound
come back to
effect.
haunt me,
Wasn't
but-
ready for that.
But
That was
Wes,
exciting.
in that, are you viewing this anti-Breeze or non-Breeze territory
Very nice.
as a sinkhole for the Saints then?
I think since about Thanksgiving, the Saints' offense has been subpar, and that includes this year. I don't like anything I've seen. Unless Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas catch fire, this team doesn't move the ball.
Well, and the run game fell apart the minute Bridgewater hit the scene last week.
And Russell Wilson played one of the best games of his career last week.
Yeah, that's I mean, there's a team too, the Seattle, that looked very different from week 1 to 2. Russell Wilson getting the ball out of his hands quicker than he ever has in his entire career. You have a great backfield. You're at home. But their offensive line hasn't protected him at all. I think that's the chance. Is Cameron Jordan's playing great. Marcus Davenport and Trey Hendrickson are coming off big games, and you're just hoping that
man.
they can wreak havoc and cause some turnovers against Russell Wilson in that offensive line.
Cam Jordan stole Rob Havenstein's soul last week.
I love the one thing about DK Metcalf, and I think I thought he might not work out. Just something about him I wasn't sure. He's made some big plays, but what I love watching him do is when they show on the coaches film of him going downfield and blocking like a little tiny cornerback, he just takes these guys and throws them like 8 yards in the wrong direction. Not sure that's why you draft a wide receiver primarily, but he makes some catches
And what they're doing with him is just having him run the same route over and over. They're not trying to confuse him. He's just on one side of the ball going down the field. He's got 2 routes.
So much of T.O., even his posture, the way he stands, the way he runs.
All right, Greg, you're picking again, baby.
Look at this. Greg's building his team.
I'm going Colts Falcons early. That's the game I'm going to focus on.
Interesting pick.
People,
maybe a bit of a reach this early, but
I mean,
okay.
Look, I'm sitting in the same room as a guy who took the Joe Flacco snoozing Broncos second overall, so I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried about it.
Less catches astray. I love it.
Yeah, that's fine. I care what Greg thinks about the games I want to watch.
Greg had that prepared the minute minute Wes went after
Guy
Teddy
picks
Bridgewater.
A dome game with the sun blinding you at
ultra
1 a.m.
vindictiveness. Ultra vindictiveness.
I'm representing what I believe to be the majority of football fans who just like watching it in a dome. They don't mind it if it's in a dome. It's fine.
Who cares about the majority of football fans? Get out of here.
Greg, you are the last person, not only on this show, but on any show ever, that I would link to the majority of football fans on any level. You have never been for their cause, and you are not for it now.
Well, you know what? You know what they like? They like the running game, and the Indianapolis Colts are a team
with a starting running back who has a calf injury and isn't practicing.
That's a problem.
Ladies,
but Jordan
get into the game.
Sorry.
We're talking the game. It's in there. He just had
offensive.
a nice little injury. Yeah, what are you talking about? Nice little injury update. It doesn't matter who's back there because it's all about Quentin Nelson. It's all about that offensive line. They're second in the league in rushing yards right now, 4th in efficiency. They are the team that Dirk Cotter says the Falcons want to be, which is a run-first team that's going to make a drive when you need to. And when Jacoby Brissett needed to make 2 touchdown drives in a row in the 4th quarter against the Chargers, that's exactly what he did. When the Colts needed to make a touchdown drive against the Titans in the 4th quarter, that's exactly what they did. Usually that's the type of kind of late excitement that we can get rallied behind, and I'm in on Jacoby Brissett and this team just being a little funky, and I think this will be a fun game. It's a sneaky good game of the week. That's what I say.
They're going to fight every week, I think. I don't think that's going to end up with them playing football in January, the Colts, but just like – we know that Frank Reich is a great coach. Brissett is not a dynamic player, but he's fine.
He's like Ken Stabler back there, getting making herky-jerky weird moves in the pocket and throwing it deep. They're like a 1970s team.
It's a shame because this really was a team that had a chance with Andrew Luck, and without him, I think they're a 8 to 10 win team. So maybe not a Super Bowl team, but a team that will play a lot of close games, fun games. So from that standpoint, with the 5th overall pick, you're probably going to get an entertaining game.
And the Falcons,
so that's solid.
Falcons always play. I'm down to.
I don't know what to think of the Falcons right now.
No, the Falcons feel a tad faceless to me. Although they certainly took advantage of a banged up Eagles defense last week, and the Colts are down. Pierre Desir appears he's got a knee injury. Jabal Sheard could be out. Darius Leonard has a concussion. So you're losing at every level a key contributor there. It's not the Colts defense at their most powerful. To me, though, I feel like you're getting the Falcons at the right time because I just am not sure who this team is. That's my issue, though. They may feel differently about themselves.
Well, we asked them to show some backbone on defense, and they did. Their defensive line is much improved, and they worked over an Eagles offensive line that everybody assumes is one of the best in the NFL. So I wouldn't just assume that the Colts are going to run down their throats in this game.
All right, moving on. I wanted to pick one of these cornered animal games, and I'm going to pick the one that I'm most fascinated by because it's against an undefeated team that's coming off a great effort on offense. We touched on it earlier. The Pittsburgh Steelers with Mason Rudolph. I took your pick.
It wasn't getting to you, Mark.
Yeah, it's always better when the other guy jumps in and says he would have been gone as well.
Not only is it the game I wanted, it is in that precious 425 slot.
That's a good spot.
Per Greg's strategy, which is a wise one.
So I'm taking the Steelers at Niners. Cornered animal 0-2 Steelers. No Big Ben, out for the season with that elbow injury. In steps Mason Rudolph. Mark, you and I saw the same thing when we watched that game, that we thought Rudolph had a chance here and could be a guy who could step in and keep the Steelers interesting and relevant. They, of course, make that trade to get Minka Fitzpatrick, which the more I thought about it, the more I love that trade. I know that
onions.
They gave, it's an onion hanger.
Not sure if I love it, but it's onions.
And because it's so unheard of that the Dolphins, whatever happened to Gary Cooper, that Minka Fitzpatrick at 22 or 23 years old, whatever he is, would say, get me out of here immediately after he was drafted, essentially. Well, we got to look at him over a year as what I'm being told. I'm not an expert in the ways of Minka Fitzpatrick, but that he is a highly versatile guy, a real chess piece in your defensive backfield. And basically the Steelers drafted a 23-year-old cornerback / safety who they really believe in and have tape in the NFL that says this guy can play at this level. It makes sense to me from that standpoint.
It does. He's already announced that he wants to be cemented into one position.
Okay.
Well, and they need him at free safety because they put Sean Davis on IR.
I have a conspiracy theory on this.
Let's hear it.
That I haven't heard out there. Kevin Colbert refused to sign a contract extension this year. He's been on one-year deals. Some rumors that either he's going to move on to another team or just move on, period. I think Mike Tomlin, if things went super south, who knows if the Rooneys would blow it up. Maybe it's Kevin Colbert and Tomlin thinking a little bit like, we got to make this year work, not think long.
I tried to save your collar once because there's like a Saturday Night Fever Travolta thing going on.
I mean,
but it keeps on popping back out.
It's good to know, though. It's good to
fly away.
Greg taking shots at a multi-million-dollar corporation. That should work out well for us.
Anyway, so I really think the Steelers have a good chance in this game, and Niners fans that feel really good after back-to-back road wins by their team, I get that, and they almost put up 600 total yards on a Cincinnati team that seemed like, you know what that game was like? That was like every year Labor Day weekend I'm in Texas, and it's the only time I ever see college football. And at this family reunion, my wife's family, all Baylor fans. Some other in-laws are UT, Texas people. There's some Oklahoma fans. So there's just football playing all the time. And typically, not always, but usually, they basically have a slaughter game week one. To get these big-time programs, they essentially schedule against some team that can't even be on the same
Juice
field.
everyone up. The fans, the team.
That's what this game looked like.
Towson State is coming into Austin.
Exactly. That's what Cincinnati looked like. They looked like Towson State against the Niners. So it got to the point that it was farce, and it was like, what can I take out of this Niners performance? It did open my eyes. Curtis Samuel, their backfield has, even with the injuries they have, there are guys that can make things happen. Matt Breida, who I know Wes, we've talked about him being a big guy, and Jimmy Garoppolo. It seems so far away, those concerns now, back during the preseason about whether he would be able to be a
It was like a week ago. This show a week ago was how far away we
He didn't play great in week one, but he definitely
I
looked
was
like,
the one saying him.
He looked like the guy that they need him to be in this game. So as much as I like the offense, I'd like to see it against the tougher matchup, and this is a tough matchup against the Steelers.
I think it is. I thought Kyle Shanahan, this put a real stamp on this past game. Number one, it's the Shanahan thing where multiple running backs are going to kill you. So if you play fantasy, and most of us don't, but if you do, like, you don't know who to pick each week because they've got multiple guys that can hurt you. Even without Tevin Coleman, you made the point. I don't think they really need Tevin Coleman.
Raheem Mostert is great.
He looked fantastic.
Jeff Wilson Jr. is now their goal line back.
Like, would Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman be better?
No, they would not.
Breida and Mostert.
Well, how could they be better than? And they had touchdowns called back by penalty. Shanahan got Marquise Goodwin free on a leak route where he crossed the line and broke up field. It was totally open. Like, that was something that you don't see very often. He's just wide open. There are, and this is a compliment. I was looking at Jimmy G and I was like, who is he reminding me of when he's not throwing the ball perfectly, but he's just operating well in the offense? It's kind of like what Shanahan did with Brian Hoyer during that one part of the season in Cleveland. They kind of looked like each other a little bit. And then Jimmy G could do so much more than that player who broke down ultimately. I am not worried about Jimmy G right now. I think that when they finally have a defense too, if they play the way they have been.
Steelers are going to start 0-3?
Well, I
don't think they're going to do
it. Was this the crazy road team you were going to take as your lock, Wes?
No, it wasn't.
I think the Steelers win this game.
You're picking this for a reason. This can be a great game.
They really need Devin Bush to handle George Kittle. And so far this year, Devin Bush has gotten lost in coverage too many times. He's experiencing growing pains, and he's been downright bad in the red zone.
Well, they're slow at linebacker. They drafted Bush to be faster. But because he's reacting slow, he's slow. And Mark Barron, there's a reason why the Rams want to know more part of him. He cannot cover, and that's part of the reason why Russell Wilson had such a great day last.
Well, I would say you lost Joe Staley, and the way the Steelers pass rush played early against the Seahawks, I mean, they dismantled Seattle early. Then they came back into the game. That's your chance. If you can get to San Francisco and hassle Jimmy G from the start.
49ers fans are getting after me because I picked the Steelers to win this. It is partly because of what Dan said. I kind of can't imagine the Steelers at 0-3, and part of me has a hard time imagining the 49ers at 3-0. These feel like two teams I'm not putting that much stock into what's happened so far. The story is yet to be written. But, man, if Mason Rudolph could go in there and this is where Mike Tomlin's done some of his best work. Maybe I'm basing it on totally intangible nonsense.
No, you got me.
Whenever you count them out, they're in.
I'm with you. I'm confident, and now I'm locking it up.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's very strange to lock up 0-2 against 2-0. But guess who else?
On the road.
This is also a corner. Sounds like a machine gun. It also is a cornered animal game for the old Zeuser at 0-2. I need this game, and I'm going to bring that energy to the Pittsburgh locker room. We winning. We flying back home on a dub.
Wounded animal employs wounded animal to get out of a cage.
It's an onions. It's an onions lock, and I think it's a good one.
All right. Who is up? It is now Chris Wessling's second pick.
This is the road team I was going to take. The New York Giants at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Danny Dimes.
I want to see how transformed the offense is with Danny Dimes. It sounds like Sterling Shepard is going to play. He was coming off the concussion. And if you have Evan Engram, Sterling Shepard, Saquon Barkley, and an offensive line that has been, frankly, one of the top 10 lines in the league so far this year, I think that gives Danny Dimes a good chance to succeed against a Buccaneers defense that has caught Greg's eye.
I love me some Todd Bowles. I mean, we were watching the game. Who's more exciting than Todd Bowles? Seeing a happy Todd Bowles on the sideline.
No,
everyone.
Let's give
Where
him a
should we start?
Literally everyone is more exciting than Todd Bowles.
Let's make him a head coach. Let's see how he does.
That's part of the reason. It's just fun to lean into this stupid bit. But they really have been better. They are blitzing more than 55% of the time. Like no other team in the league is remotely close. They don't even really have a pass rush. They're trusting that Vita Vea and William Golston and Ndamukong Suh and Levante David can just stop the run while they're almost selling out to just blitz, and they can. It's kind of a way to work around the one strength they have, which is they have a good run defense, and they're blitzing like crazy. And at least in September, and maybe against a rookie quarterback, that can sneak you out some good performances.
I mean, I think to your point, Shaq Barrett basically said that he had played in a 3-4 defense his whole life, but that the Todd Bowles 3-4 was something completely different. We saw him blow up the Panthers last week, and so something's working. I flip to the other side of the ball, though, and I look at Bruce Arians, who – I love Bruce Arians, but I can't quite figure out if he knew this was where he'd be coming into week 3, that this is why he pulled out of retirement to take over this offense.
He was convinced that Jameis Winston is a legitimate franchise quarterback.
Well, then I would that he should have at least gone in suspicious of that, hoping that would be the case, not convinced, because
we're 2 weeks in.
We're 2 weeks in,
and they're 1-1.
Okay.
And he's the same quarterback
then
he's
I would
ever
say
been,
this.
if not worse.
Tampa is so out of their minds right now. I saw an article this week in the Tampa Bay Times that said, with Drew Brees' injury, are the Bucs the new favorites in the NFC South? And I was like, yeah, they're feeling the fever.
If the offense does not totally maximize against a Giants defense that could not have been more lost at sea last week at home, then I don't know when it happens. You're playing a rookie quarterback. I like him better than Eli Manning, but it's still his first start in the NFL against a good defense. We've just talked about them. If you cannot make this the game where we figure out, this is what Arians and this Bucs offense are going to be against one of the lamest defenses in the league, then I'm not holding my breath for it to happen.
I'll buy that. They have to do something this week.
They are not doing what last year's Bucs offense did. O.J. Howard is vanished.
Not even close.
Just throw it DeAndre Baker every time.
Yeah, that's part of the Gettleman story that's not being told right now. He took a few people in the first round. Daniel Jones wasn't the only one. DeAndre Baker, his first-round cornerback, is right now the worst cornerback in the entire NFL and would be benched if he was on it.
You have every right to bail on the Bruce Arians experience with Jameis Winston if they cannot move the ball up and down the field against the Giants.
Right.
Yes.
Giants stink. Their defense, Janoris Jenkins, their secondary stinks, and the secondary is complaining about the defensive line.
It's a good sign.
Which stinks.
In mid-September.
The whole roster stinks on defense. So especially at home. And maybe Danny Dimes brings some juice to the offensive side of the ball.
I think he will. They
He's
might
not gonna
get
help the
Sterling
defense.
Shepard back. Golden Tate returns in a few weeks. They were smart how they did this because I think Danny Dimes is going to look like a hero.
All right. Now picking Mark Sessler.
Well, in a draft, there's always the fly-by-night, less prepared team that watches the picks they were going to picked over and over just before their time
That guy
arrived.
Like a fantasy.
The
You
last
you
two
are this
games,
guy?
the last two games picked were my next two picks lined up. So
Now you're
I'm
scrambling,
Now
like-
I'm scrambling.
Wait,
I'm gonna,
hold the clock. Hold
yeah,
the clock.
I'm going to wind up with
my,
the guy
my
that
connection froze.
Yeah, we're gonna have to listen. This is someone we believed in for a long time. I believed in this game from the start, even though on my actual list,
Number 1 on your board.
It's lodged at number 13 or 14 out of 14. Carolina at Arizona.
Yikes.
Good.
It is one of
Good
the
pick.
last remaining late games, and I am a little
Smart.
I'm a little chargered out, so I'm bypassing Chargers. And here's my one thing: watching Arizona play the Ravens and losing and driving deep and moving the ball well for big chunks of the field, but falling apart into field goals in the red zone. I'm not sure what to make of this offense entirely. I really like Kyler Murray's, for a guy who's played in 2 NFL games, his aggressive mindset. He is whipping the ball downfield. He is reviving Larry Fitzgerald. They've got some weapons in the passing game. I'm not sure this is going to work or not, but I think they're going to have a couple games where they simply explode. I think it's going to happen, and I like this game. I'm picking this for that reason, that I want to be there when they suddenly drop 40-something points on a team that has issues all over the place. And the team with issues all over the place right now is the Carolina Panthers. You've got Kyle Allen at quarterback. I understand he played well in Week 17. I don't really care about Week 17 at this point. Ron Rivera is clearly agitated. He walked away from his press conference 2 minutes in today because he was getting too many Cam Newton questions. Well, that's not stopping. And what is happening to this team in general? They feel like melt territory to me, and nothing.
It's a big week for Carolina.
It is a huge week. Talk about a wounded animal.
For Riverboat's job security, it's a huge week.
For everything. I think the future of where the team's going. You have an owner that has been patient because owners like to come in and do their things and put their stamp, and he's put no real stamp on the team. And I think this could be the offseason where a lot of changes happen if this team continues to trajectory into deep earth. You got a big week coming up in Arizona.
I love Kyler Murray's intermediate deep ball accuracy and touch, and his willingness, like you said, to be aggressive. If his wide receiver's even, he's leaving. Every time he sees his receiver get a step, he's throwing deep to that guy. I love it. I thought it was interesting that Chris Carter said after talking to people in Arizona, defenses are going to find out quickly that Kyler Murray does not want to run. He doesn't want to get hit. He feels the same way about getting hit as Tom Brady and Drew Brees do, and he doesn't want to run.
Well, imagine if you're him and you just stepped into the NFL these first couple games. Like, he's the smallest guy on the field by far.
He's the one quarterback that looks small. Like, he looks noticeably different than everyone else out there.
Except for the helmet.
It's tricky. They're going to have to figure out a balance because when I think it was Pernell McPhee got in free on a busted play, it's just – a 275-pound great athlete coming at you with no pass protection. Kyler Murray put a spin move that dropped him on the ground. It broke his ankles. It made Pernell McPhee look like an old man, and that's the type of runner Kyler Murray.
Looked like an old man for 3 years.
Right, but that's the type of player he can be if he wants to escape. And then he took an easy 7 yards to the sideline. That's one of only 4 runs he's had all year.
One quick correction. We referenced Towson State. It's actually Towson University.
Oh,
They
good.
changed it.
And I know that because
Oh, they changed it. So there's even a reason.
my bosom buddy Bob Castrone, Throwback Pod partner, attended that school.
How about that?
And I've been there.
It
And
was
they're the
not
Tigers.
Towson State at some point, though?
I believe it was at one point.
Oh,
And that
In
is
the
no
90s.
longer the case. We're talking over 20 years ago.
My bad.
What state are they in?
Maryland.
So Maryland was like, stop referencing us at
It's a
this
state university.
Hmm.
So they are connected directly to the state.
Okay, but Maryland said, we're done with you. Stop. You're not connecting. I mean, we don't need to
I'm not
deep down
familiar
this,
with
into
the-
this connection. But
The politics of that area.
I don't know. I feel like whenever a school needs to change their name from the ground up, there's something that going on that we should
this is-
explore.
They just dropped the state. They didn't. It wasn't a ground up change.
Okay.
So
Bob was
Mark-
going to come at me if I did not bring this up. So go ahead.
I was just asking, does Mark get another? Is it snaking again? Does
Well,
Mark get back to
No, it only snakes.
I guess
Oh, really? I thought it
It's
was
one
another
person.
snake.
No. It
That-
is
that
now
fourth
your
slot-
pick. Again, snakes every time to you. Whoever
This
picks
doesn't
fourth.
make sense, does it?
Yeah, it does.
It should snake back to me, though.
Yes.
That's what happened is we did snake, and then we went around this way again. It's meant to snake back my
Oh.
way. I was actually heavily robbed. This has been an absolute disaster because I should have gotten, after Greg picked 4th and 5th, I should have had the 6th pick. You've buried me down at 9 or 10. That explains the horrific draft.
Let's just kill the snake for right now.
Wait.
Well, no, it should at least
for the
get back
interest
this
of the
way this
listeners
time.
who have now had the last minute and a half on Towson State and an imaginary snake.
Time out.
I'm absolutely right, so don't even explore.
You had the it went
1,
2.
Dan West,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes, I had the
Greg again.
Greg again, and then Dan again.
Yeah,
Dan.
If I
No,
pick
it goes
second,
back this way.
Yes.
why would
It's a
Greg get
snake.
3 picks before
It's
I do?
a
if I
snake,
pick-
Dan, because the snake is curling back and
Yes.
forth, not getting cut off at midsection after Greg takes 2 picks and starting again with Dan.
I just looked back to our control room. They've all left.
Well, I don't blame them. I don't
Just
blame
like
them.
a chair swiveling.
But
All
at
right.
least this time it should snake back this way.
All right.
Can we possibly
Who's picking?
Correct.
Who's picking?
Go, Greg.
I'll
ahead,
just
Greg.
make a choice. I'm gonna take another 4 o'clock game because this all plays into my. I'm gonna watch Lamar anyways early, so I'll take the second 125 game. That's Texans Chargers, and I am interested in this game because this early in the season, I have no idea what these teams are. I have no idea what they're gonna be. I mean, when you think about last September, can you really remember what teams were like? Can you remember Blake Bortles dropping 4 touchdowns on the Patriots? For that Jaguars team that was clearly headed to the Super Bowl while the Patriots were doing nothing. Like, can you remember the Bengals looking awesome and being super clutch? I don't know. You don't know what they're going to be in September. And these two teams especially, I don't have any feel about. They've got great quarterbacks. They've got terrible offensive lines. Their defenses have been up and down. I want to see a little more out of Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram and them making an impact every week. And this is a great week to do it. And it feels like a big game because I think these two teams are very much in the AFC playoff picture. And so it could wind up mattering at the end of the year.
Who's got the better backfield in this game? I've been really impressed with what the Texans have done in their backfield. I know they paid a premium to do it, but Carlos Hyde is running as well as he ever has, and Duke Johnson playing pretty well. Austin Eckler, what's he got, 4 touchdowns and averaging 100 yards a game?
Wherever you took him in fantasy, it wasn't high enough. I mean, that was your pick. That was the pick right there.
Chargers have the better backfield, I think, because you've also got Jackson. I think they also are the team that proactively built a super deep stable to the point where you even forget that Melvin Gordon is a human being who exists at this point. His leverage is so far in the distance that whatever his argument was, he's become completely unnecessary.
He
for
came
the
out
story
like
of
on
this
social
team.
this week, and he said something about, I'm going to be playing somewhere. And at this point, him talking isn't even making a ripple. Not in Los Angeles.
And also,
They took away his blue check mark on Twitter. Now he's just like a regular guy now.
He's doing the Benjamin Button in all the wrong ways. If you took away a few flags in last week's Chargers
relevance
game,
Benjamin Button
yes,
situation. I like
he's heading
this.
back toward blue check mark on. You're not even in college anymore. You're a hopeful high school sophomore. If you took a few flags away from the Chargers game against Detroit, their backfield has another couple touchdowns and like 60 or 70 yards. I mean, that game was closer than it should have been because of Chargers flags.
All right.
Right, and they lost. I think the Texans have more to feel good about, actually, so far. Whitney Merciless is reborn.
Defensive player of the week.
DJ Reader on their front line looks good. Their front seven is really good. They have some major weaknesses, which we've talked about, offensive line and secondary. But I think their strengths are coming forward, and the running game has looked
Merciless is such a huge for him to step up with Clowney gone.
Yep.
That's exactly what they needed. Now Watt was a little better, by the way. I had some maybe unfair digs on Watt a week earlier.
Oh, he played well.
You do a Gulston in week 1, you're going to catch some heat when you're a player at that level. But he went in the right direction. Maybe we're due for one of those monster Watt games this week. All right, Mark, you are up, and my apologies.
Well, no, I don't blame you because it's like 106 degrees in here, and I think it starts to affect the mind before anything else.
I think Mark Brady did this on purpose as some type of psychological test.
Well, it's not working. We're still on the air as far as we know. And I'm going to pick – I like this game. I don't know why it interests me, but there's not a lot left to pick from. I'm going Dolphins at Dallas.
Oh, damn.
Sorry, Wes.
I got banked. How do I pick second, but then everybody picks 3 teams before me? I don't understand this.
Well, maybe I should be apologizing to you, Wes.
All right. Go ahead.
It was not on purpose.
I wonder, the Dolphins have faced the Ravens.
There. It was great.
The Ravens and the Patriots.
He loves
I'm
his
not
little
sure that they
Cowboys.
aren't playing the very best team they've played yet right now. The way that the Cowboys are operating, this is another terrible situation for the Dolphins, and we've spent a lot of time on them this week. I just want to see how Dallas handles this, because I wonder if the Dolphins become a team that if you get up 24-0, 30-0, that you find a way to use it as a bye week, or do you keep attacking all week long? Do you give Ezekiel Elliott a full quarter off? Do you play Dak Prescott? You know, it's a good week for them not to have Michael Gallup. He's out for a while, but you don't need all your guns necessarily if you hold turnovers down and find a way to take care of the Dolphins, which shouldn't be hard. I mean, I also think we're watching history. This Dolphins team could be, how many teams in the league have gone undefeated in their history and winless? This is a little bit of history, and I'm hanging on for a little week 3 slice of pie.
How about
NFL
this?
history.
It's a little
in this
underrated,
100
though, how
season.
they have opened against the 3 best offenses in the league, or 3 of the top 4 or 5 offenses in the league. It's
because
pretty
they're
much-
playing against the Dolphins.
But no, the Patriots are going to be good. The Ravens are dynamic. The Cowboys are good. You know, the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, if his agent could have scheduled September himself, he couldn't have picked 3 better tomato cans to knock down than these 3 teams.
I'm with that. I also think that it's the fact that, like, what can the Dolphins do? Who can they impose their will on? Right now, the answer is
Towson
clearly
Tigers.
the Towson Tigers, coming from Towson
They're fans.
College or University at this point. The one reason I will also keep an eye on Miami is someone's going to lose to this team, and that's the team that's going to get ugly. When you're the team that loses to Miami, let's say it's in Week 8, that coach is on the hot seat. I don't care if you're even Bill Belichick.
I mean, if they were like playing Gardner Minshew, it would be a close game. Or if they were playing some other team, I really do think they're not going to get blown up, their doors off every single week. But this week, probably.
And Wes, since you don't get to, well, you'll watch this game at some point, but do you have any thoughts on your Cowboys after watching them during the week?
Well, a lot of thoughts, but they don't really matter against the Dolphins.
Right.
It's like all
the
analysis.
Dolphins are resistant.
They matter long term.
The Dolphins are resistant to analysis. It doesn't matter who you're playing on your team when you're facing the Dolphins. They're an embarrassment. They're a disgrace, and that's what can you do?
All right, Wes, you're up.
I will take Raiders at Vikings.
Good
and
pick.
I hate it.
That's a nice pick, though, bro. It's a
All
nice
right.
pick at this stage in the draft.
It's kind of a sneaky big game.
Yes. I think the Raiders, like Greg has been saying, are way more talented than they were last year.
Wes, good pick.
Thank you.
Everyone else is saying. I just want to tell you did a nice job there.
Keep an eye on Josh Jacobs, who has looked really good in the first 2 games. Lost 10 pounds this week. He's been sick.
What?
Yes, he's lost 10 pounds.
10 pounds in a week. That's a lot.
Has a hip injury they just reported, too. He's got, like, multiple physical injuries, and he's sick and lost 10 pounds.
And the other team.
Do you have mono? What's going on here?
The other team, the Vikings, might have the running back who's played better than any running back in the first 2 weeks, in Dalvin Cook, despite playing behind an offensive line that has not played well, especially rookie center Garrett Bradbury.
That's an interesting part of Cook's emergence is he's made most of these yards on his own. He leads the league in yards after contact, but you know who's, I think, even better than him per carry is Josh Jacobs. These are 2 of the 3 backs who have created the most yards, and I love the way both of them finish their runs, especially Jacobs. He refuses to go out of bounds. He's kind of that old school style, but with a little more wiggle than you'd expect. Like he's a lot of fun to watch.
The Raiders, I think losing Jonathan Abram, he slightly annoyed me during Hard Knocks, early on. Then I think they kind of pulled him out of the narrative a bit to prevent that from continuing to happen. He, though, has a little bit of Eric Turner in him in terms of his physical presence, and he just didn't care if he was in the league for a game or 2. He gave them an identity, and I think he strips a lot away with him not being in the lineup, and they have been absolutely torched by a wide receiver in 2 games straight. It was Cortland Sutton did it to him. It was Demarcus Robinson. And it's like, who's it going to be this week? Because the Vikings have the weapons. It might be a get-well week for Minnesota through the air. If they were to get clipped by Oakland here, they quickly become a team that I don't have a lot of faith in. Because the Vikings, to me, I don't know. This was who they were at the end of last season. You could not handle yourself in prime time against big opponents, and they just don't feel all there to me.
Well, their passing game's worse. Their running game's better, but the passing game's worse. And Cousins' pick in the end zone last week, to me, wasn't the most concerning part. It was that he came out the next drive, still had 5 minutes left, almost threw another pick, and then airmails Adam Thielen on 3rd down by 10 yards. And you don't like seeing your veteran quarterback on tilt. And he was just on tilt, like where his mind was somewhere else.
He was supposed to,
And he can regroup, but that was a bad moment.
For that not to happen. He's supposed to be that steadying presence. That was such a disappointing Cousins performance. And I think there's pressure on him now that's building, and we'll see how he reacts to that. I mean, if you look at his career, he has not fared well under pressure, especially against
these
good
are the
teams.
types of games that he does fare well, though. A quiet afternoon game against the Raiders that not much of America will see. And I'm still with you, Dan, that they're a good team.
Against lesser teams, he does. I mean, I will say they were one team along with the Saints that if you go watch what the Zebras did to Minnesota in the last game,
sure,
they were
a zebra ref in a big spot.
Good zebra ref. You got to go there. I mean, they were absolutely victimized. It's happening to 2 or 3 teams a week now, and they were one.
I'd lock this game up if I could look in the mirror, but I just think Oakland on the road, no one's going to feel good about me doing that.
I think it's out of the little numerical zone that we had talked about last year.
And the Vikings defense got off to a slow start last week, but played well in the second half. And I think their safety combo of Harrison Smith and Curse has been lights out this year.
Okay. I'll take it. I mean, I'll fall on the sword. I'll take the Jets at the New England Patriots. You know what? Let's go with something else, something a little more appropriate. Okay.
It's on New York City. It's on New York City.
That's more like it. That's where we are with the Jets, who are 0-2 and facing the Desert and La Sid, everybody. Erica?
La Sid.
Sydney. She really killed it there.
Yeah, she has a beautiful voice.
Our former producer.
Well, it was very antagonistic, Dan, but
What? She's part of the show.
Just in terms of building Erica up as the show is actually unfurling on live air.
Okay. But the Jets, according to the Desert People, building Erica up as the show is unfurling on live air.
Versus having a previous producer come in and take a star turn with some sort of Broadway hit. I mean, we all love La Sid, but
I mean, that was that was beautiful. It was like
I don't know why
the zombies had invaded New York and only Sydney was left.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're a Jets fan, there's a lot of other things to do in New York City. You don't live in central Iowa. There are other things to occupy your time, and I would start doing that right about now.
Makes sense. What was that, Ricky?
Forget it.
Happy birthday to Sydney, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
All right.
Blow out those candles.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
She's on. All right. The Desert People have the Jets installed as a heavy, almost unprecedented level underdog. And I imagine New England will be just fine taking care of business there as well. And for all the reasons everyone knows, we don't have to dwell on the Jets because we talked about them a lot on Tuesday. But is there anything, Greg? This is the only thing I really need to touch on this game before we move on, because this game is as bad as Dolphins-Cowboys in the sense that what do you even take out of this game on either side? The Jets, there's nothing to learn because you have your third-string quarterback in, and this is actually the third starting Jet quarterback in 3 weeks. It's only happened 6 other times in the Super Bowl era. And the Patriots, of course they're going to take care of business here. What have you seen from the Patriots that's been interesting to you that maybe people aren't talking about, if there's anything?
Well, just how incredible their secondary is. I think people are talking about it, but the numbers that they're giving up in terms of their starters, under 50% completion. I mean, they have almost as many passes defensed as passes that they've given up right now, and they have 6-7 guys. Jonathan Jones, J.C. Jackson, guys who aren't big names, are playing really well. The competition hasn't been great, but I think there is something for the Patriots want to get their offense in sync, and I know it sounds crazy, but they really haven't been this year. They're missing both of their starting tackles. They're missing their starting center for the season, so that's 3 of your starting offensive linemen. I think there is a way for a better defense to get after them, and the running game hasn't been very good. So they want to, kind of like the Browns, and I know it hasn't been as dramatic, but I think they want their offense to look a little more in sync and like the Patriots' offense that they expect.
It's certainly easier because, I mean, we sort of always talk about New England figuring themselves out in September, which, unlike other teams, means you either go 4-0 or 3-1 or 2-2 once in a while. But
I mean, they were 1-2 last year. They were 1-2 a few years ago.
It gets lost in the mix because, that's not really that tragic of a story when we look at where the team winds up. And secondly, the difference this time around is their defense is historically awesome over 2 games. And
Take it back to the Super Bowl. They haven't allowed a touchdown since the AFC Championship game.
They're remarkable, and I think that maybe it's the kind of team Bill Belichick quietly loves coaching more than a lot of these other ones. The one thing I'd say for the Jets, because yes, if they didn't cover the spread here, or whatever we're supposed to be calling it on the show, like Adam Gase clearly was a fetish of ownership when he was hired, because he left pretty disastrously in Miami, but they went after him hard, and yeah, no one's expecting them to win, but how they lose this game and how they lose some of these games coming up matters a lot. I think one thing that concerned me at the end of that Browns game was the look on Le'Veon Bell's face after he had been thrown into the fire like 31 times. And it's like, that's not what anyone's looking to do for the next 2 months of an NFL season, is just get beaten up as the team's only option.
Well, the good news is that Sam Darnold's back with the team, and he's confident that he'll be playing in Week 5.
And
so
they have
this will
an
be
early
the last
bye.
game he misses.
The bye was perfect. They're going to get Chris Herndon back from suspension. Whatever they had,
they'll get C.J. Mosley back probably after the bye.
Whatever they had set up on offense, they can still accomplish those goals on offense.
They're not going to be in the playoff race, and expectations change. I think as far as this game goes, I don't think there's anything that Adam Gase will get judged on in Week 3 with Luke Falk at quarterback. It's just a throwaway.
I'm with you, Dan.
For what it's worth, he did some pretty good stuff as the coach of the Dolphins offensively, pretty consistently against these.
I'm with you, Dan. I would say perception. Adam Gase is already being judged as sort of the chef of a disaster, even though it's not entirely his fault or mostly his fault.
Yeah.
He's got to keep control of the locker room. This season could go sideways for the Jets.
He's got to keep control of his emotions. You can just see it wearing on him.
Especially when you have an emotional head coach, an emotional defensive coordinator, and an emotional team leader like Jamal Adams.
All right, let's move on. Who is up?
Well, I've lost.
Right, it's all very confusing now. Am I stuck now with a fourth game?
You could throw one my way if you wanted to. I don't know where we want to go with this.
I believe it is Greg's pick.
Well, there's only one left here.
Yeah.
So
Greg, go ahead.
So I get stuck. So I had the last pick, and I get stuck with the fourth game.
Yeah, we all have 3.
No, everybody gets stuck with.
Plus, you're watching one of Dan's, so that's your own fault. You're watching
so this
5.
game is clearly not going to be watched. It's Eagles Lions. This Eagles team. We almost overlooked how ridiculously terrible it was on Sunday night, how quickly their entire team changed, potentially their season. Hopefully, they keep things afloat. To lose Dallas Goedert, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, Tim Jernigan in the matter of minutes is pretty wild. And they've already lost Malik Jackson up front. They're already down, a linebacker. It's just a lot, and it's really going to test, Doug Peterson this week. We were thinking in the offseason, who's Carson Wentz? How's he going to keep all these guys happy? Now he's throwing to Mac Hollins and Arcega-Whiteside, who played almost every snap of that game and had one catch and did nothing. And so their running game looks terrible. Everyone loved Miles Sanders coming into the year. He's been very hesitant. They didn't have a run over 5 yards last year.
I don't think Miles Sanders is the problem. I think it's the offensive line that's the problem. And Isaac Seumalo, especially at guard.
He struggled. I think there was a couple. There were probably 2 runs where I think Sanders even talked about it last week, where he was way too hesitant and trying to break it to the outside, and that was on him. But yeah, they're not in sync. They struggled for a little while, for half the game against the Redskins too.
They did. I mean, that feels like a long time ago at this point. Watching Detroit. Kerryon Johnson, I just love watching him run, man. That guy, and it's like they cut C.J. Anderson, and I'm not sure those are directly related, but they should be, because you just don't need extra running backs. And the Lions spent all offseason saying we want to be a running back by committee. We refuse to anoint Kerryon Johnson as our workhorse. But
they just preferred Paul Perkins, the guy they claimed off waivers from the Giants. They just chose him over C.J. Anderson.
Well, I think they're really choosing Ty Johnson, their rookie running back, who I think is going to be a factor for this team. A clear backup and change of pace, but kind of an interesting guy that they can use as a receiver.
The Lions were not boring against the Chargers, and to me, that's personally, that's a big step. I kind of find them – they're kind of like that nerdy – like a nerdy girl in a science class, like sits in the back, like the goth girl that doesn't talk all year. There's something going on with that person. You can't quite figure out what it is.
Straight
That's
out
the
of
Lions.
1999, like rom-com. Is that what this is?
I don't know if it's a rom-com. They don't
Yeah.
feel like a leading character, but they're just sort of in the mix.
She has her hair is up. She's wearing overalls. She's wearing glasses.
Stafford is not
Overalls are
Stafford
underrated.
is not aging the way that some are either. He can throw the ball as hard as anyone in the league still. So,
By the way, I
I
did.
like the Lions.
The number 1 pick also snakes, so this is my game. So I'll take it off your hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you do
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
You got it.
Dan's going to be toiling
I saw
on
you
Sunday.
I saw you doing your math over there.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
Yeah. It's tricky because we're not sitting in the order of the snake. So
Oh, it's
this is
very
something
tricky.
we'll continue to make the tweaks as necessary as the weeks go along.
Yeah. We'll
Old Zeuser
continue-
will have it under control. Don't worry.
Don't worry, guys. We'll continue to spend 15 minutes of every show talking about this.
All right, let's get to Sunday Night Football, and it's a big one. Mark Sessler, the Los Angeles Rams, 2-0, travel to the Dog Pound to face the 1-1 Cleveland Browns. And Rich Eisen came into the show on Tuesday, and he said it, and we all agree. Well, that the Browns are out of that purgatory. But now comes the business of actually being a real team and being a competitive team. You're no longer in sad hell. Now you need to be a team that wins games, and they have some type of stretch, I believe. The next 4 or 5 teams are all 2-0 right now. And there will be no violins being played because the Browns are supposed to hang in these games and win some of these games, including a home game in your building. Right, Mark? Come on, let's go, Cleveland Browns. Get going now. 1-1.
No, that's just people talking. I mean, I think if you watch what Cleveland's put on tape over 8 quarters, you have to love the pass rush, especially when you played a broken down Jets offensive line. They didn't do a whole lot of that in the first game. I see an offense completely out of sync, and if you take away a wide-open Odell Beckham on the clip people are watching going for 89 yards in that game, you'd come out of that saying the Browns' offense has as many issues as any high expectation team in the league, and they've got offensive line issues. David Njoku is out. Rashard Higgins being out last week hurt them a lot. They have their right tackle in a walking boot, and the guy who's going to come in absolutely caused mayhem in the reverse way for Baker Mayfield in the first week. They are a banged-up team on both sides of the ball. I don't like the way that they're pulling Nick Chubb off the field on third downs, telecasting Adrian Peterson like that they're going to be throwing every single time. To me, they've got a lot to figure out. This is not the right time to deal with Aaron Donald and the Rams. And I hate to do this, but I have to do it out of cold logic. I am locking up the Rams.
Oh, my God. This is not cold logic.
This isn't logic.
It is.
This is emotion.
This is strange emotional games you're playing with yourself.
Cleveland is, you look at their schedule, Cleveland's what they're going to have to do in this season is open about 2-4. They have the Seahawks. They have a 49ers team. That's where I pegged their second win. Not today, I don't.
How about
and they
the
have
fact that the Rams O-line has been as bad as the Browns O-line?
I would say worse.
I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a close game. I just think the Rams are going to take care of business. Here is some psychological thing that concerns me a lot. I grew up loving Clay Matthews, the father of the Clay Matthews. Anyone today would know. Historic Browns linebacker who should be in the Hall of Fame. They are inducting him into the Ring of Honor. That is a beautiful thing to do. What concerns me is that it is total Monday night type scenario where Clay Matthews, the son, with the father watching, takes down Baker Mayfield as a Rams pass rusher in a key scenario right off right tackle where Chris Hubbard from a walking boot is reading a poetry book on the sideline while the Browns offense is going down like a boat in the sea.
Let me see if I got this right.
Hubbard's into poetry?
Let me see if I got this right, Mark.
Well, I knew you would have a response to this. You can say whatever you want to say.
I'm just asking a question. You've waited 20 years.
First of all, I have to watch the whole game during the show with you guys. That's a disaster.
You've waited 20 years since this Browns reboot to have a team that's worth a damn, a team to get excited about, and you're locking up against them in Week 3 in their first Sunday night game in like 15
And what's a pick-up game? You just don't have to pick it.
You're locking against them?
First of all, if the Browns lose, which is going to be a mess because I'm going to have to watch it and hear, and it's going to be those comments like, ooh, wonder what's going on with Baker Mayfield. Hey, Mark, what do you think's going on with Baker Mayfield as we're all sitting here eating like stale Chinese food before we do our Sunday night recap? Total disaster. Would rather be literally anywhere than here during that.
You're more upset and miserable now than when they sucked.
Because I'm hearing things like, you're out of purgatory. Everything's perfect now. Why won't they just go 6-0 or 5-1? They have major issues. They have a quarterback.
I
yes.
wish I had your issues, buddy.
That's
I'll tell
fine.
you that.
You have a quarterback too. Your quarterback is out for 3 weeks.
I
That's
feel
the
bad.
difference.
I feel bad. I mean, like.
Wait, all right. Let me throw enough with me.
Your family was saying there was
Do you
a
think the
somber-
Browns are this 5-1 team that's just going to roll to this record?
No,
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, but I think they could easily beat the Rams.
I picked the Rams
At home?
No,
I
not easily.
picked the Rams in what I think is close to a coin flip game. The Browns are slight underdogs. That feels about right. The Rams have major issues, as Wes mentioned, on the offensive
They've
line.
been as resilient as any team in the second half.
Absolutely.
all year.
They've found a way to win when they're not playing their best offensively. The defense definitely looks good. But if there's a defensive line out there ready to victimize what's been a struggling Rams O-line, including Andrew Whitworth, who's coming off one of his worst games
Getting old
of his
eventually.
career. I mean, it's Myles Garrett, and it's Olivier Vernon, and it's Sheldon Richardson getting after it.
I mean, you talk about Baker Mayfield being out of sync. I haven't seen Jared Goff in sync yet. I haven't seen
He doesn't
just
look
because
very good.
Cooper Kupp ran over half the Saints secondary doesn't mean that Jared Goff's in sync.
I don't think that Baker Mayfield, the player, is like a lesser player than last year. I think the offense in general has lost some of its sort of daring do, and they were just in swagger and complete control down the stretch last year, and they look completely different. And I would like to see Nick Chubb be like 30% more the engine to this offense than he was over the first 2 weeks.
And if Mayfield is getting a little scrambled against Greg Williams, I think Wade Phillips is going to cook up a lot. I mean, you've seen some good Wade Phillips sacks where guys are just getting in free. That's mostly what Clay Matthews and Fowler have gotten this year, is just kind of free looks at a quarterback.
If I'm a fool,
and you have a safety trio, which might be the best in the entire NFL in terms of their smarts and playmaking, in John Johnson, Eric Weddle, and their rookie Taylor Rapp, who's basically playing as a starter. And those guys have been hovering back there, and it's been tough to make big plays.
Find out Sunday night if I'm such a fool about this. I
have said that about the Jets game too, though.
It's more the emotional thing.
Like a team that's rising the way that we want to put. I think part of it is like, let's put them there so that when they don't get there, we have someone to like shoot arrows at. They're not there yet. They should have a team that's there would have beaten the Jets 41-3.
It's more that
they would not have done what they did. They could not finish drives.
That's
you
fine.
tell me they were not extremely frustrating from an offensive standpoint.
It's more
they were a mess.
that if they do win, it's just sort of annoying you locked against them. Like I
No,
remember I once picked against the Patriots Jets. They won 45-10. It's just like, why pick against your favorite team?
Greg, you know what's annoying? Locking the Browns up and having them give up 43 points at home after an offseason of everyone putting bells and whistles on them before they've done it.
Pick one of the other
That's
15
annoying.
games.
Yeah,
because I did pick.
Wes, help your boy.
I did that last week.
It's going to be all right. Tell him it's going to be okay.
I think it is going to be okay.
I find it annoying that it's like, you're a Browns fan, everything's perfect for you now. Only in this
No
studio
one is
is that
saying
nonsense.
that. No one is saying
they
everything's
literally were
perfect for
saying
you.
that on the last show and on this show.
Who's they?
I feel like this is a creation of false dichotomy, that they either have to be world beaters who live up to the hype, or they have to be doormats who don't.
They're just a team right now.
All that
They are
Eisen
not-
said
they're
was
not
the
a great
Browns
team.
are out of
27
purgatory.
other teams, just about.
All right.
They're just a
Let's
team.
move on.
That was interesting.
That was wild.
That was wild.
Monday Night Football, the Chicago Bears
expected?
traveled to Washington to face the Redskins. Your final wounded animal game, your cornered animal game. But Wes, this is a big game in a primetime spot for Mitch Trubisky, I think. That's what I'll be watching the most here because, number one, you have a Redskins defense that, going into the season, people said, oh, this is the unit. Everyone's sleeping on the Redskins D that can carry this team and make them frisky and they could hang around in the NFC East and in the playoff picture. Well, that has been – you could not get further from the case so far. They've given up plus 30 in both games. They're getting beat up. People are talking about Greg Minuski, maybe his job's in trouble. Well, if Mitch Trubisky goes in there after that miracle win to get to 1-1 and lays another egg or looks stiff or lacks confidence and they somehow lose this game, the pressure is going to be outrageous on Trubisky, and I don't know if he'll be able to handle it. Big game.
Well, the Redskins defense, it's sort of hit or miss. They've been stingy at times this year. The first half of the opener against the Eagles, the first half against the Cowboys last year, they are extremely banged up in their secondary to the point where they were playing safeties at cornerback against the Cowboys. So I think that's part of the disappointment with their defense. But you're right that with Trubisky, you would have reason to believe that he'd improve in his second year with Matt Nagy, that they get David Montgomery, they get Cordero Patterson, the offensive line returns intact. They still have Tariq Cohen. There's no reason to believe he shouldn't be better. and he has been a sort of Jekyll and Hyde quarterback. He has had some of the worst games imaginable, and then he's had games where the Bears' offense looks dynamic. That was last year. This year, we've yet to see that. So I think the onus is on him now to kind of prove all the doubters wrong if he's going to be the answer for the Bears.
This should be a nice spot for him, though. I mean,
it's set up well for him.
It is, and yet I don't feel that comfortable that the Bears are going to win this game. This could have been a double wounded animal game if not for a shaky call and a great kick.
Do we have any of those? Do we have a double wounded animal?
I don't think we do.
We don't.
And the Bears especially, even at 1-1, don't feel like they're out of that wounding stage. I don't think they feel very comfortable right now with where they're at in general. It is a great matchup, and yet I always kind of feel like Colt McCoy, Jay they're a little better than you think. You know what I mean? Case Keenum. They're gonna find. Sorry, not Colt McCoy. They're gonna find a way to just win 5 games this year. That's like, oh, how did the Redskins win that game? And I feel like this could very easily be one of them.
And let's give Case Keenum some love. It's been swallowed up by the fact that they've gotten beaten twice.
He's been fine.
But he's been fine. You could say he's been better than fine. He's been a lot more than what we expected because he did not look good at all leading up to Week 1, and he has been far from the problem.
Yeah, I think he's sort of what you expect with Case Keenum, that he's going to do a few things well, and he's going to, like you said, win a couple games for a team that largely doesn't matter this season.
They might get Jonathan Allen and Jordan Reed back, but the secondary, as Wes mentioned, seems like it's going to stay banged up.
I'd say if you're tied into the Bears' experience, they remind me of another team that they have after last year a lot of expectations. If you drop this game against a very mediocre Redskins team in a lackluster stadium on Monday night, you are in a world of hurt and you are out. You're not coming back from 1-2. I know that sounds crazy, but this team you're broadcasting that you cannot handle this journey.
It's a bad start.
You cannot handle this journey if you go 1-2. They need to come in and drop a bomb on the Redskins.
You come home and play the Vikings at home, and then you go to Oakland and into your bye. So, I mean, I don't think it would end their season, but it would really ramp up the pressure. And again, this is a team that when you look back at the summer, the writing was right there on the wall. It was like the only narrative coming out of that camp was the kicker thing. And it's almost too obvious now that they're going to have struggles from all other directions and rendering all that summer talk silly. It seems to happen sometimes with teams, and this feels like one of those circumstances.
It could also render Week 3 talk silly if they take off. We're talking about a team, I think in the Matt Nagy era, they've never lost by more than 1 score.
Wow. They have a recipe to be a lot better.
I think they're going to win. I could see Khalil Mack, with a pick 6 and someone else with a pick. They're going to score like 12 points on defense. Trubisky's going to put up 3 field goals and make 1 throw that everyone's freaking out about despite 15 incompletions where the ball's sailing 25 yards over someone's head. I mean, you're going to it's the full experience. They should win this game though. You cannot lose this and come up with excuses.
So he's, under fire. Dolphins quarterback also under fire. We've got some breaking news. They still count enough. The Josh Rosen experience is on in Miami. He's going to start this week against the Cowboys. They count enough to announce who their starting quarterback's going to be.
It makes sense.
Well, my pick is starting to look very frisky. He's getting a lot. My pick is getting a lot of sort of rookie mini camp. This guy is impressing coaches.
I feel bad for him.
He has been under pressure. I mean, their offensive line, as Daniel Jeremiah said, it might be the worst in NFL history. I don't know about the team, but the O-line is there.
So he went from one of the worst offenses of the decade last year in Arizona,
which he contributed to be fair,
to a worse
He's a rookie, and now he goes to maybe the new worst offense of the decade, where his health is in peril playing behind that O-line. I just don't know. I don't expect any advancements in his career this year, and I just worry about whether he'll ever recover from these first 2 years, or this is the narrative and his career is ruined by just fate.
This is when I go on Craigslist and I hire people to kidnap me and build a story of huge sympathy. Josh Rosen has been kidnapped by someone. We don't know who it is, but behind the scenes.
That worked out great for
training.
He arranges the kidnapping.
Yes.
Exactly.
And he's with Tom House and Pick Your Guy. So the entire time during the abduction, he's working on his game. When he reemerges from the bunker, I survived this ordeal.
Late December,
They never showed their faces. I'll never be able to say who it is, and I'll always live with that fear, but I have to be brave and move on. And I still want to play football because people doubted me, my love of the game. But I've come out of this realizing that football is more important than almost anything besides God and family.
Yep.
And I'm going anywhere. And meanwhile, he's built up his entire body. His arm's great. Tom House will keep that secret and take it to the grave.
He's jacked, yep.
And away we go.
Like, he spent 3 months on the commissioner's non-injury exempt
He signs with
list,
the Colts
and now
or
here
something.
He has like a
is, yep.
behind-the-scenes reality show produced by TD at Uninterrupted. It's all happening. Wait, we got some breaking news though. We got
More?
another bit of breaking
The
news.
Trojan horse game.
More?
I forgot to make my lock, so I'm going to make an unprecedented lock. It's on Thursday Night Football. It's the Tennessee Titans. Now we're separating out. That's the team I do believe in the most. So
Okay.
even though
We can do that now.
this might already be wrong to some of the listeners tuning in on Friday or Saturday, I like the Titans defense.
Like that move.
To swarm Gardner Minshew.
Good.
They're more athletic.
All right. That's it. Yes, as Greg just alluded to, for the first time, we'll have a mini pod that will drop Thursday night. I believe, Mark, you and I will be handling coverage of the AFC South
Stress
showdown.
on Mini.
And so check that out. It'll be like, 7 to 10 minutes or something like that. And it will supplement this show. And then the next time you get a full episode, of course, is Sunday night. And just like this show, the Sunday night show is live and in your ears and in your eyes. In your eyes. That sounds almost painful.
Sounds like an 80s song.
Sunday night flagship show right after the Sunday night football game wraps up. It goes up. NFL.com, YouTube. Awesome.
All the places.
The light, the heat.
Is that right, Mark? Did I get
Professional
that right?
job in tough situation here, Dan, with the heat, Powered
It was
through.
tough. It was tough. We just had to Meanwhile, in the control room, everybody doing an amazing job, but it's like 68 degrees in there. Look, they're putting on jackets. But thank you to everyone behind the glass, because this is it's been a very smooth ship early on, which isn't always the case with these type of programs. But you guys are nailing it, so thank you.
Pros.
All right.
Bartlett back there blowing into
And you,
his pants.
Ricky, you know.
Why are you making
love you.
faces? You did a great job telling us about the breaking news.
Thank you.
Grade A producing.
Thank you.
You're a great producer, and we love you.
Thanks. Love you guys too.
You are loved.
Thank
Don't
you.
ever forget that.
Thank you.
All right, let's go.
HR?
Oh.
It's on
This is Dan Hansa signing off for The Quiet Storm, the mailman, the old boss, and Ricky Hollywood behind the glass. And La Cid, take it away.